Diversity is
open-mindedness,
being all-inclusive,
coming together in one place,
culture,
accepting everybody for who they are,
love,
inclusiveness,
acceptance and family,
people from all walks of life,
aspects that everyone brings,
to accept other people's cultures,
non-discrimination,
unequivocal compassion,
Paragamba,
all different types of cultural backgrounds,
being accepting of it all,
sexual orientation,
community.
America's a diverse nation.
My daughter, my commitment.
different
experiences,
mental health,
abled and disabled,
and respect. My future.
The beauty of the world lies in the diversity of its people.
All together working for one common goal.
Uniqueness and unity is what diversity is.
An institutional facade.
Good evening, San Marcos, Texas. Today is a sunny day and it's a great day to be a Bobcat. Eat them up, cats. Hello, my name is Thomas Nguyen and I'm reporting live from Texas State University, where you're watching Higher Ed Today. In today's headlines, we'll be exploring the historical context of the multicultural affairs and the initiatives for student diversity inclusion programs. We will also look at two offices, one at St. Edward's University and the other here in Texas State University, where we're going to talk to Dave Gallagher, the former Assistant Director at St. Edward's Student Life Department, and Dr. Stella Silva, the Associate Director here in Texas State Student Diversity and Inclusion, where we get to learn about their offices, their programs, and their own journey into student affairs. Let's talk to Veronica Tapia with the 411 on the historical context of multicultural affairs and the diversity and inclusion programs.
Yeah. Thank you, Thomas. So before diving into diversity and inclusion found at colleges today, it is important to understand the history and how these offices came to be. So from the beginning of higher education in America, college students were exclusively white males. Although the original intent for these universities was to educate males to enter into clergy and faith-based roles, affluent white men increasingly infiltrated spaces in order to prepare for leadership roles such as politics.
Hold up! So you're saying American colleges weren't always accessible to me?
And me? That's right. In fact, in 1896, Supreme Court ruling of Plessy versus Ferguson established separate but equal, which was not overturned until 1954 with Brown versus the Board of Education. Because of the separate but equal ruling, minority groups were highly discouraged from enrolling in institutions of higher education. After Supreme Court mandated that states desegregate schools, education became more attainable for minority groups. But as is still palpable in society today, these minority students fell victim to racism and prejudice in their own college campuses, which in turn created a tense and hostile learning environment for diverse students. According to research, many minority students in predominantly white institutions, or PWIs, do not feel a sense of belonging. Nonetheless, the population of minority groups on college campuses began to increase, thus forcing institutions of higher education to step up to the plate and address these problems.
That's interesting, Veronica. So when were diversity and inclusion programs created?
That's a great question, Thomas. So around the 1970s, colleges created administrative roles that focused primarily on affirmative action, equity, and cultural competency. These roles were developed around federally mandated affirmative action policy. Staff members were responsible for educating the campus community on issues relating to diversity and inclusion in order to facilitate a positive change within the campus community and enhance inclusivity. As diversity offices and positions began to develop, they carried titles focusing primarily on ethnic diversity, using terms like multicultural, minority, and affirmative action. However, these offices grew to expand and serve not only racial minorities, but all marginalized groups, such as LGBTQIA groups, students with disabilities, and faith-based minorities as well. Areas of responsibility have brought in to reflect not only race and gender, but on blending the goals of the institution and with efforts to be more inclusive.
Thank you, Veronica, for your report. Now let's check in with Carly P. on the purpose of multicultural affairs and diversity inclusion programs.
Thank you, Thomas. This is Carly reporting live from Texas State University. Today we will be talking about diversity and inclusion on college campuses. In order to fully understand diversity and inclusion on college campuses, we looked at 5 of the largest public institutions in Texas. When looking at these institutions and their mission statements, we realized they have 3 things in common: promoting diversity, co-curricular support, and creating an inclusive community. One of the main objectives of diversity and inclusion offices is creating and increasing multicultural competency. Multicultural competency is understanding and being able to work with different minorities and ethnic groups. One way these offices help increase the students and staff's multicultural competency is through workshops, trainings, and cultural events. The purpose for diversity and inclusion offices on college campuses is to create a diverse and inclusive campus culture.
Oh, hello! Thank you, Carly, for your report. As you mentioned, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion purpose is to create a more inclusive community. It's a requirement that staff have to have a very high level of multicultural competency, which is working and understanding others who are culturally different. According to Pope and Reynolds research, multicultural competency is the awareness, knowledge, and skills to work well with others who are culturally different from you. First aspect of multicultural competency is awareness. In order to work with a diverse population, one needs to be aware of their own biases and assumptions. It consists of our own attitudes, beliefs, and values. So whenever we work with students who are different than us culturally, we're able to treat them very fairly and with respect instead of basing off our own prejudices and stereotypes. The second aspect is knowledge. As student affairs professionals, we need to be knowledgeable of different cultural groups. Unfortunately, there's a lot of inaccurate information, and we need to deepen our own understanding of each groups and individuals. We cannot be ignorant and rely on stereotypes and prejudices. We have to take the initiative to actually get these knowledge. Knowledge is power, and how can we educate others if we don't educate ourselves? Not only should we understand their history, but we have to understand their own identity as well. Just because they're under one cultural group doesn't mean they share the same value and meaning. So we need to take the time to actually know and understand each individual. And the last component of Pope and Reynolds multicultural competency is skill. We need skill to be able to be more aware of our biases and take the initiative to learn about different cultural groups. Skills will help us become more of effective professionals when working with a diverse population. The purpose and one of the requirements for working at the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, let's take a look at 2 actual offices of diversity and inclusion here in Texas.
St. Edward's University is nestled in Austin, Texas, and is a small private Catholic university. They currently serve about 4,600 students and are considered a Hispanic serving institution, with 41% of their students identifying as Hispanic. This small community emphasizes the importance of service and experiential learning, a common component for a liberal arts education.
Texas State University is a large public institution located in San Marcos, Texas. They currently have about 39,000 undergraduate students and is a Hispanic serving institution with 35.9% of the student population identifying as Hispanic. Welcome to Higher Ed Today Talks. Today, we're going to meet with Veronica Tapia, one of our news reporters, who recently went to St. Edward's University. Let's give a round of applause to Veronica Tapia. How's it going, Veronica?
It's going great. How are you?
Doing well. I heard you went to St. Edward's. How was the trip?
Yes, it was great. We got a lot of great information on the Student Diversity and Inclusion Office there.
Cool. Let me start with my first question. So who did you interview at St. Edward's?
So we actually interviewed with David Gallender, who is the former Assistant Director of Student Life. And he was really informative. He actually is a graduate of the Sahi program at Texas State University.
Awesome!
Cat.
This is Sahi alumni.
Yes.
So, how did Dave end up working at the Diversity Inclusion Office, and why was he interested?
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty funny story. He actually got his position doing the project interviews for the same project that we're conducting right now.
Very cool.
So he kind of just capitalized on that relationship, kept in contact with them. He later interned for them, and then that internship ended up turning into a full-time position after he graduated from Sahi. So he didn't actually start in the position that he's in. He started in a different position, but he ended up kind of being funneled into being the assistant director for
Okay, so you didn't
student
go
life.
through like an interview process, right?
No, he did not. Yeah.
Alright, is diversity inclusion like at St. Edward's?
So the Office of Diversity Inclusion is actually housed within student life. So the office suite encompasses orientation, student activities, and diversity and inclusion. So the office is definitely a pretty big shared space and pretty fast-paced environment.
What are some programs the Office of Diversity Inclusion do?
Yeah, so Dave actually hit on 4 major components. So the first one was education, and they accomplished this through peer educators, ally training, and other kinds of programs to educate the campus community. He also talked a lot about the dialogue programs that they have on campus. So this is the second facet. And this is actually really cool. It was started after the 2016 election. It provides real-time response to current events that are going on and stimulating a lot of interest in students. It kind of develops a safe space for these students to discuss these. And one thing that they majorly focus on is building empathy within the students that attend these dialogue series.
Oh, that's a really awesome program. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming they do lots of narrative talking as well. So from your
Mhm.
perspective.
Yes, and then the third is community outreach. So with community outreach, that's just partnering with different kinds of organizations within Austin, and also building partnerships with speakers in the Austin area. That way they can come to campus and host different kinds of workshops and events. And so then that brings me into the last component, which is special events. And that's basically just having the special events, whether it's cultural events or educational events for the whole college campus to kind of benefit from.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for your answer.
Yes.
Okay, so what are some challenges you found at the St. Edward's Diversity Inclusion Office?
So Dave did mention a lot of challenges that they faced at St. Edward's University with diversity and inclusion. A lot of those were that he felt that they did not have power within the university. And
No power?
No power. So as you can imagine, they're very stretched with work. They only have now one staff member who oversees diversity and inclusion. That staff member is not even solely dedicated. That person is shared between diversity and inclusion and other offices. So that definitely strains the diversity and inclusion programming. Another issue that they have is the convoluted structure within the university. So Dave did mention that they had some trouble getting to talk to the Vice President of Student Affairs or the Academic Affairs Director, just that everything had to kind of be filtered up and then filtered back down. He did kind of express some frustration with that.
So it feels like there's no focus or priority when it comes to diversity and inclusion at St. Edward's. Did you feel that way during your interview?
Yes, Dave definitely did leave that impression that, well, I will say that he did come out and say that he felt that they had no support, and what support that they did have, it was kind of strained and lost within the staff members because a lot of the staff members they're not necessarily trained on diversity and inclusion ethical practices. And he actually did give us several examples of different events that went on campus that could definitely have been misconstrued and would have caused some students to take offense given their ethnic or whatever other kind of identity that they had. And so he definitely was frustrated with that, and he also expressed the need for them to incorporate some kind of diversity and inclusion training for staff members because they don't have that right now.
Yeah, all of it could be prevented if it was just training.
Right, definitely. So then just going along with that, another challenge would be that Dave did express that diversity and inclusion and competency in general is definitely the responsibility of everybody, every staff member at St. Edward's University and every student for that matter.
Wow, Dave is totally right. It's everyone's responsibility. The whole community is responsible for diversity and inclusion. So St. Edward is a private Catholic institution.
Mm-hmm.
So how do they include religious diversity?
Yeah, so we actually did ask Dave, and he told us that there's another office that is dedicated to addressing religious diversity. And he said that they do, diversity and inclusion does often pair and collaborate with that office.
Oh, that's awesome. And final question, what was your favorite part? It's just about interviewing with Dave.
My favorite part was definitely just how honest Dave was. A lot of times we ask questions and we can kind of anticipate the answer that we'll be getting because that's just the answer that they're supposed to give us. So I really appreciated his insight on his office and their strengths and also things that they can improve upon.
Thank you so much for your answer. It was great having you. You should come back again. Great interview. Thanks, Veronica. Let's meet our next guest right after these messages.
What are you doing next Saturday? Come to Equality University at Texas State. It is a conference for diversity, inclusion, and social justice issues sponsored by the Student Diversity and Inclusion Office. For 9 easy payments of $0, you can attend Equality University for free at Texas State. Join us on Saturday, November 11th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the LBJ Ballroom. Hope to see you there.
Let's meet our next guest, Carly P. My talk show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
No problem. I'm glad you're here. So I heard you went to Texas State.
So I went to Texas State and interviewed with Dr. Stella Silva.
Hi, I'm Dr. Stella Silva, and I'm Associate Director in the Office of Student Diversity and Inclusion.
That's awesome you got to meet Dr. Stella. So why did she decide to go into this field of student affairs, specifically in diversity and inclusion?
Yes, so when we spoke, we touched on her philosophy, which is providing students with access to educational resources.
That was a really great philosophy. I really appreciate that. So when you first walked into the office, how was it? What was the structure like?
So the office is very friendly and welcoming. So the way their structure is, there is Dr. Ben. She is the Director of Student Diversity and Inclusion. There's Dr. Silva. She is the Associate Director, and 2 Assistant Directors, Jessie Silva and Miss Wilson. Another fact is that Dr. Ben is the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs and the ADA Coordinator.
That's cool. So what programs do the Office of Diversity and Inclusion at Texas State do?
They cover a variety of educational programs. One amazing program they offer is training, the Allied Training, which is available for students and staff. And the cool thing about Allied Training is that once you complete that training, you receive this card that you can put in front of your office door or you can have with you, so that way LGBTQIA+ students know that they can come to you for support.
So during the interview, did Dr. Stella ever talk about the strength of the Diversity and Inclusion Office?
Yes. So one really amazing thing that we spoke about was how flexible they are with their programs. So before they actually put on a program, they sent out an assessment to see what the students would like to see in their office. And if they feel like that program is no longer meeting the students' needs and is not beneficial, then they take it out. So they very much are flexible with feedback and meeting the needs of their student population. They are very open to building community with these students, and that's how a lot of these programs came about.
So what else did you learn during the interview?
So one thing we also spoke about was challenges that they face within the office. One of those challenges is budget. With such a growing and diverse population comes a need to meet everyone's demands and serve these students.
So what was your impression of student diversity and inclusion?
So you can definitely tell that the office itself has a great presence on campus, very much visited by students, and everyone in general wants to work with Dr. Ben. So they definitely are doing valuable work, and that's something that Dr. Silva stresses, that they are doing a great job on the campus. So they definitely feel like they are meeting the students' needs, and you can tell they are very much open-minded and welcome to serving the student population.
It sounds like student diversity and inclusion at Texas State has a very great reputation.
I definitely believe so.
So what was your favorite part of the interview?
My favorite part actually about our conversation is her willingness to share her personal stories in order to benefit my future. So one thing we spoke about actually, which was not necessarily part of the interview, was retirement. So you can tell she's very passionate and willing to serve her students. Very humble, and as a person of color, I very much grew from that conversation.
Thank you, Carly.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for having me.
Interviews that we gathered, one commonality that we found was that both offices emphasize on educating the college campus students on diversity and inclusion through programs and student leadership opportunities. We also noticed that both offices changed their name from Multicultural Affairs to the Diversity and Inclusion Offices in order to convey their mission in continuing to be a more inclusive campus. We also noticed that compared to St. Edward's and Texas State seems to focus more on diversity and inclusion. According to Dr. Stella Silva, she believes the reason why is because they believe that their department is very important because of the valuable work and programs they've done. They have grown so much in the last 10 years, from allies training to quality university. While St. Edward's, the Diversity and Inclusion Office, are trying to still prove their importance to the staff member at the university. In the meantime, they are leveraging relationships with other departments in order to fulfill their mission. Another notable difference is the structure of the office. Student Diversity and Inclusion at Texas State has its own department with 7 full-time staff, while at St. Edward's is under the Student Life Department and currently have only 1 full-time staff for the entire campus. Both institutions believe that they need more staff. At Texas State, they're very stringent in the hiring process. They want to make sure that the person who they hired has a very high level of multicultural competency, so they're actually willing to close the position if they're not able to find a person. Overall, Texas State has an obviously stronger Student Diversity and Inclusion Office compared to St. Edward's due to the support of the administrators. What we can deduce from the 2 interviews is that in order for a high functional diversity and inclusion office and to fulfill its mission, the office needs full-on support from the university administrators.